Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyoti Gamaya Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. O God, please lead us from the unreal to the real. Please lead us from ignorance to knowledge. Please lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Good morning, friends. The subject of my talk this morning is after death existence. Is it a fact or fiction? Once I had to give a talk on Hinduism to a group of high school teachers in Burlington in Washington State. After the talk, during the question and answer session, one of the teachers asked me, Swami, what's the proof that we exist after our death? Well, I had to give a very tactful reply. I said, if you want a direct proof, then you may only get it after your death, not before that. Well, death means extinction of life in this physical body. That's why after death, the lifeless body is either cremated or buried. Burial causes slow decomposition of the body. The body becomes disintegrated. While cremation is a faster process which can disintegrate the body just within an hour or so. Now let me try to find out what the teacher meant when he asked me, Swami, what's the proof that we exist after our death? Did he want me to prove that even when we have lost our physical bodies, we somehow exist in a finer, invisible form or state? Otherwise, how can a person think of existing after death? His physical body is gone. Still that person thinks that that person may exist after his death. There is a reason for it. We all know that the owner and the object owned cannot be the same. If I own a car, I know that as the owner of that car, I must be different from my car. I can't be my car. In the same way, the vital energy which I possess, that is owned by me, so I must be different from my vital energy. In the same way, I can't be my senses, because I own them. Then what about my mind? I own my mind, therefore I have to be different from my mind as the owner of that mind. That awareness is always there in us. That's why when that question comes to our minds, shall we go on existing after our death? Then a sort of picture appears in our minds. That is, the body is dead, lying dead, and I am standing apart from the body. I am different from my body. That's what is different from my body. Can be subtle, can be very fine then. That's why I think the teacher asked me, what is the proof that we exist after our death? Somehow the proof is there inside us, in our thinking. The other implication of what the teacher had asked me could be that whatever exists or survives the physical death must be the real person. The real person leaves behind his or her body. It is this real person who used the physical body as long as he or she was physically alive on earth, which is called by some people the soul. Do we see our soul? Obviously not. What we perceive with our sense organs, that tells us that what we have perceived with our sense organs, that must be true, that must be real. But everything that we perceive with our sense organs may not be real. There are optical illusions. The sense organs commit mistakes also. Still, sense perception is considered to be a proof of something which exists. A mystery is something which can never be known. When a mystery has been solved, then that mystery has ceased to exist. In mystery novels, usually the mystery novels start with some murder or something, but the readers are not allowed to know who is the murderer. And eventually, in the last chapter of that book, the author will tell the readers who is the murderer. Until the readers have come to know who is the murderer was a mystery. But when the readers have come to know who is the murderer, then the mystery has been resolved, which is not there anymore. That's why in mystery novels, they don't give the solution of that mystery in the very first chapter. It is a fact that we had ancestors, otherwise we would not be here. If you go backward in time, then who were our ancestors? They were in a primitive stage compared to what we are in. They most probably lived in mountain caves and ate raw meat. They had not come to know the use of fire also. They dreaded fire, forest fire. And there would be a forest fire, they would run away from the forest. Gradually, they started knowing many things which were a mystery to them. Their world was covered all around with mystery and magic. They would see the sun appear on the horizon in the morning. Then again setting, that means disappearing behind the horizon. But then again the sun would arise the following day from the horizon. How would that happen? Why the sun gets lost? The sun, which is a source of light and heat, why it gets lost for a while? And then how does it reappear? These questions must have perturbed our primitive ancestors. And they thought that some kind of magic made it possible. So they lived in a world of magic and mysteries. And of course ignorance, a lot of ignorance. Even today, when we have come to know many things which our ancestors, primitive ancestors didn't know, we are still ignorant about most of the things which are around us. What we have learned is very little compared to what is yet to be learned about. So the ancient ancestors also must have pondered over what happens after a person dies. And this idea of the existence of the soul, is it a new idea? No. Our primitive ancestors came to know about the soul. How? They would see some people die and their bodies disintegrate. But when they would fall asleep and have dreams, they would see those dead people. And people who were dreaming, they would interact with those dead people. And the dead people seemed to be healthy and whole, wearing nice clothes, or some primitive clothes, or no clothes at all. And then when they would wake up, they would look for those people, but they couldn't find them anywhere. Then some of them must have watched some high-flying birds, such as the eagle, flying higher and higher and higher. As it keeps on flying higher, it becomes smaller and smaller. Eventually, when it flies very high, it almost disappears from sight. That's why our primitive ancestors, they must have concluded that there is some world up above, and that world is invisible, because it is very high. That's why it is invisible. Thus came the idea of heaven. Heaven is up above. They didn't know at the time that the earth was round. They thought that the earth was flat. So heaven was above. And the departed souls, those who have got rid of their physical bodies, they go and live there. They still go on existing, and they live in heaven. And when we fall asleep and start having dreams, they reappear in our dream world. One of my brother monks is quite humorous, and he says, it is like the denture which some elderly people use. The dentures come out at night. They take out the dentures and put them in a cup or and soak them in water. So just like the dentures come out at night, these departed souls, they also come out at night when a person falls asleep and starts having dreams. Not before that. Not in the daytime. But then some ancestors, such as the ancestors of the Greeks, they thought that there was a hollow area underground, a large hollow area. And they used to call it Hades. And all the departed souls go and live there. And they reappear when people fall asleep and start having dreams. That's how the idea of the soul came. It makes much sense to me how the idea of soul came. Practically, whatever we have, nothing of that is original. I have acquired my body from my parents, from my mother's body I got it. The language that I am speaking, that is borrowed. My mother tongue, well, that was not English. That also was borrowed from those who were around me, and mainly my mother was around me when I was a baby. My name, well, I've been given a monastic name, which is Swami Bhaskarananda. But when I was born, another name was given to me. I was born without a name, without a language, but with a mind. The mind could memorize things, could try to understand things, and I was given a name, whatever that name was. Then I went on repeatedly thinking that was me, that was me. If you go on thinking repeatedly something, thousands of times, then that is almost like chanting the holy name of God. Then that's what you become. That's how I became this or that. A person becomes John or Jane by constantly thinking that he or she is John or Jane. So whatever they thought again and again, and that became a reality to them. But the civilization of training in India is pretty ancient. Much more ancient than many other cultures which are there in this world today. So as it has existed for many, many thousand years, some people who had the ability to think clearly came at one time or the other. Most people's thinking is confused thinking. There are very few people who have that kind of mind which is calm and serene. And when such minds which are calm and serene think of something, then they can know of that something better. So some of those people came to know certain truths, and they are called seers. Seers or rishis, that is the word they used, Sanskrit word. What others cannot see, they could see. That means know. They could know what others would not know. One of the unknown things was that this earth was round. And one seer, we don't even know his name, he told others who were around him that the earth was not flat, it was round. There is a book in which that ancient quotation is there, or that sentence is there. Karatala kalita amalakabad amalam vidanti ye golam. What I have just rattled out, that is called Sanskrit. That is one of the most ancient languages of the world. And the country from where I have come has 15 or 16 major languages and many minor languages. And most of those languages have come from Sanskrit. Karatala kalita amalakavad amalam vidanti ye golam. That statement is there in Sanskrit. What does it mean? That great thinker of the past, you may call him a seer also, he is saying that this earth is as round as a certain fruit is there called amalaki, something like a plum. Just like the fruit, that plum, which is on your palm, the earth is round. They came to know about it. And when they came to know about it, some people believed in what? Believed that the earth was round, so heaven is up there, and what about those who are on the other side of the globe? What would be heaven for them? And people have always seen some who are not very friendly. They are considered enemies. Society gradually started forming in the primitive age, I am saying. There were some people who were considered enemies. And therefore they were bad. Every person is born with the ability to discriminate between what is good and bad. Of course, what is good and what is bad is determined by an individual by what is conducive to him and her and what is not conducive. So, there were some people who were labeled as bad. Would they go to heaven up above? They used to wonder. Then they thought, no, they cannot be allowed there. They must have gone to a place which will be very dark and dismal and full of bad odor, malodorous place, and where they will be tortured through eternity. Because people, you see, weak people, they cannot do sometimes anything to the tormentor, who is big and muscular. So what will those weak people think? Well, this person torments us. Well, we cannot punish this person. But after death, this person will go to a very bad place and will be deep fried in hot oil through eternity. And where will that person be? Down there somewhere, in hell. That's how they would get some psychological satisfaction. Well, I'm a person who thinks that he must not believe in any kind of superstition. Whether it is religious superstition or medical superstition, it doesn't matter what kind of superstition it is. What is a superstition? A superstition means belief in something which has not been proved to be true. That is a superstition. So that's how the idea of heaven and hell came. But now that we have become more knowledgeable, and we have been using more and more our rational faculties, we'll examine all these ideas and see whether they're really true. In India or in Hindu culture, to verify something, verify the validity of something, some methods are used. Such methods are used elsewhere also. But I'm talking about the methods which were used in India by some great philosopher saints. And according to them, the first method is sense perception. Is it true that you all are present before me? This moment? Yes. How do I know that it is true? How this truth is being validated by my mind? Using sense perception. I can see you all seated before me. So through sense perception, I have validated the truth that you all are here in this room now. And such methods of validation are called pramanas. Prama means true knowledge. And something which helps create true knowledge, that is called pramana in Sanskrit. In English you may call them proof if you want. The first pramana is perception. And the second pramana is inference, called anumana. I may see a distant hill covered all over with forest. So how do I know that what I have seen is true? That hill and which is forested all over. With the help of my organs of sense perception. So that method has helped me to know that what I have sighted is true. But then I see some smoke coming out of the forest on the mountain. And I know that to be true also because I have perceived the smoke. But other than that, I come to know another truth, which is that there must be fire on that mountain. There cannot be smoke without fire. But I could not perceive the fire. Still, I acquired this conviction that there must be fire on that mountain, which I have not seen, which I have not perceived. How? Through that mental process which is called inference. In Sanskrit, that is called anumana. I grew up in India. I came here when I was 43 years old. I had read about America and other parts of the world also. Certain things I came to know about many other countries. And I read about the American buffalo, which is also called bison. And although I have been in this country for so many years, I have not gone to some parts where this buffaloes are there. In America, I mean. But had it been possible for me to go to one such park, and had I seen some American buffaloes or bisons there, then I would recognize them to be bisons. How? I had not seen them before. But I had read that these bisons resemble Indian water buffaloes, but still they are a little bit different. Then I would examine that bison and say, oh, it really resembles the water buffaloes which I have seen, but it is different also. So it must be the American buffalo or bison. How have I come to know this truth? With the help of comparison. By comparing this bison to the water buffaloes in India. So comparison is another method of validating truth. Then there is another method of validating truth. It is called reliable testimony. In Sanskrit it is called Shabda Pramana. Well, when I was born, I could not read the calendar. So I didn't know the date, the day on which I was born. So if somebody asks me, how old are you, Swami? That means how old is my body? Well, from my own experience, I cannot tell how old I am. Still, I know my age, whatever it is. And how have I come to know of my age? From my mother's testimony. In regard to my age, my mother's testimony is the most reliable, because it is she who gave me birth. When our order decided to send me here to serve the children of God who are in this country, then I had to get a US visa. And the US consulate would not accept my birth certificate, school leaving certificate. Because India, even though it is supposed to be a country of religion, there are many people who falsify the ages of their sons. They used to do at one time. Now perhaps they don't do anymore because there is no more need for that. At one time they did. Particularly those who were born during British India, yes, they used to do that. Because government post jobs were considered covetable, and one would not be able to get a government job if one was above 25. So the fathers, when they would admit their sons to school, they would reduce the age of that boy by 2 or 3 years. Because who knows, this boy may fail in examinations, then, but some provision for that. That's what they did. People lie. Even the innocent children, they lie a lot. But grown-ups lying, that is not expected in a developed culture. But they did. So the American embassy had come to know about that, because I was born during a period when the British was ruling India. So, and some Indians must have told them, the American consul, that age is falsified. So the consulate wanted to know my exact age and say how to prove it. Then they said, your mother should give an affidavit in the presence of a magistrate, judge, and that will be accepted. Then you see, I had to request my mother, who was living in that holy city, Benares, and she was elderly at the time, and a judge had to be brought into her room, and then she signed that affidavit, and that came to me. So, mother's testimony was the most reliable. So, this reliable testimony, it is called Shabda Pramana or Apta Pramana. That is also one of the methods of validating truth. Then there is a fifth method. It is called non-perception, the method of non-perception. Now, if I ask all of you, is there an African elephant standing here next to me? Then you all will say, no, there is no such elephant here. How do you know that what you are saying is true? You are 100% convinced that what you are saying is true. There is no African elephant standing next to me on this platform. Which helped you? This non-existent elephant you could not perceive, you could not see. So perception did not help you. Your inference did not help you. No comparison as a method of determining truth or validating truth, that is also not usable. Here, the method that you have used is called non-perception. Non-perception. In Sanskrit, it is called anupalabdhi. This is the fifth method which can help you to validate truth. And then there is a sixth method. In Sanskrit, it is called arthapatti, or postulation in English. Postulation. Let me explain what it is. Let us suppose there is a person named John, and he claims that he has taken a vow of not eating any food in the daytime. Yet he is seen to gain more and more weight. Nobody sees him eating anything in the daytime. And yet he gains weight more and more. His gain in weight can only be explained through the postulation that he must eat at night. But nobody has seen him eating at night. Yet through postulation, they come to know the truth, that he must eat at night, otherwise he cannot gain weight. So through postulation or assumption as a necessary condition to arrive at a reasonable explanation, we can verify the truth of his eating at night. These are the 6 pramanas, or 6 methods of validating truth. Among all these pramanas, what we call reliable testimony will help you accept the truth of post-mortem existence of the soul. Such testimony we get from 2 reliable sources. First, scriptures, which contain the experiences of all-knowing sages or divine incarnations. Then secondly, we can rely on the testimony of some people who are called in Sanskrit Jati Smaras. What is Jati Smara? Jati Smara means one who can remember his past incarnations. There are some people, the number is small, but they can remember their past incarnations. So these are the 2 sources. The spiritually illumined sages or divine incarnations, they say that yes, there is a person exists after his or her death. Not only that, that person may reincarnate also. That also they say. And those who are Jati Smaras, they are born with the memory of their past incarnations. And what they say were validated because they are proved to be true. Well, let me tell you something. There was one gentleman who used to be a member. His name was David Manning. He was a high school teacher in Canada, in British Columbia, the state of British Columbia. He came to me one day from Vancouver, BC, and told me that he often could remember that he, with his siblings and his parents, died of a fire in Okanagan Valley, which is in Canada. They were in the house, and the house caught fire, and all of them died of that fire. He told me that he could vividly remember that, even though that happened in his previous incarnation. Then he said that to his minister. He used to go to a Christian church. He was born a Christian. The minister said, no, there is no reincarnation. It can't be. It is just a figment of your imagination. Forget it. That's what the minister said. But he could not forget it. Having come to know that I was a Hindu swami, he came here. He asked me, is it a figment of my imagination that I, with the other members of my family, perished out of fire in my previous incarnation? I said, that could be very true. Reincarnation is a fact. It is not a theory. It is a fact. It is a fact that we reincarnate. Then I said to him, why don't you go to that Okanagan Valley, and he could remember the name of that town. Go and see if in the old records of the city you may find some newspaper cuttings or something. Some old newspapers might have been there, and go and see if you can find. Then he went and took a lot of time, and then he found that news item in one of the very old issues of the local newspaper. He kept on coming. So he could remember, and what he could remember was verified by himself. And we, in India, the work which our monastic order does is vast compared to what we do here in this country. We have only a handful of centers or churches, but in India we have many. Not as many as the Catholics have all over the world, of course. That has existed for 2,000 years, almost. But we have at least 150 churches like these, or centers. And each one of them is quite large. We perform philanthropic activities, we run schools and colleges, and we run a university also there. And our schools and colleges are amongst the best in India. We have hospitals, charitable hospitals, quite a few of them. And clinics, I cannot even count how many clinics are there, charitable clinics. And one of the best schools that we have in India, which our order runs, is in a, I would call it a town now, called Narendrapur. It is in the outskirts of that city, which is Calcutta, which is a metropolis, Calcutta. And in that school is very famous. and it is a residential school for boys. And the teachers have their own quarters provided by our order there. And one of the teachers who lived there, his name was Mr. Mitra, that was his last name. He had a young son and a very young daughter. And the daughter was just at that time about 3 years old. And the name of the daughter was Dolan Mitra. And the daughter started saying, she had started talking a little earlier, she started saying, "You are not my father, you are not my mother and my father are elsewhere." That surprised them, why this little girl was saying all these things. Then the girl started growing up a little, and then when she was most probably about 5 or so, she said that she was born in a city called Bardwan. And she named her parents. And she said that in her previous incarnation she was a boy, not a girl. And when she was a student in college, she died. She went on giving so many other details. And that aroused the curiosity of the other teachers who were living in that area where the teachers' quarters were there. And it reached the ears of the swami who was in charge of that educational complex, very large complex. His name was Swami Lokesharananda. Then they decided to go and investigate this matter. And some teachers, that girl Dolan Mitra, her parents, and Swami Lokesharananda, in a group went to the city of Bardwan, which was about 80 miles away from there by train. And when they went to that city and to that particular neighborhood where the girl said she had been born, the girls pointed to a house and said, that was our house. They all entered and knocked at the door of that home, and the surprised occupants of that house, you see, they were really surprised to see a group of people, unknown people, and including a swami. You see, in India we always wear orange robe, and our heads are shaved and all, so we look different. But anyway, they were hospitable, and then that girl went upstairs to a room and said, "This is where I used to stay." And it was true. Everything that is said was validated. What she had said was validated that day. And her parents of her previous incarnation, they were very much embarrassed. Because the parents of this incarnation, they also had come along with that little girl. But anyway, after that they all came back. And that girl was made to understand that she has to put up with the parents of this particular instruction. And the parents became all the more loving to her. There is one teacher of the school, I talked to him the other day. And by the way, that girl, Dolan Mitra's father's name is Manik Mitra. In case you want to verify, whether name was Manik Mitra, and where the teachers stayed, there the quarters, where the quarters are or where, that is called Acharyapalli in our language. That means the village of the teachers. That's the meaning. And until she was 14 and 15 years old, her memory was intact of past. But then when I talked to one of the teachers the other day over the phone, I asked him about this Dolan Mitra, where she is and all that. Then I was told that she is now a grown-up woman and she's married and she lives in New Delhi. Gradually, it seems her memory started fading away. But a little bit of that memory may still be there, you see. So this is a concrete proof. But what happened to her after her death, that question has not been answered. She was reincarnated, this is true. She must have existed in some finer form, you see. That much we can guess. That girl did not. And she is not the only one. I met her on, you may say, well, in Hinduism they talk about all these things, some of you who have grown up in Christianity. And in Christianity, early Christians believed in reincarnation. Because one blind person was brought to Jesus at the time. And if Jesus was asked, why is this person born blind? Is it due to his own fault or due to the fault of his own parents? Well, we understand the fault, what is meant by the fault of his parents. But if he was born blind due to his own fault, then that fault he must have committed in his previous incarnation. So that is the implication. And they believed in early Christian fathers, even fathers, those were priests. They believed in reincarnation. Then you see gradually some Romans also became Christians, and there was a Roman emperor who became Christian. And there he was a sort of a general type, you see. And one day he said, the idea of reincarnation must be banned from our religion. Since then, the Christians don't believe in reincarnation. And what I said is not the figment of my imagination. You read Christian history, you will find it. A Catholic family is there, and I have been to Brazil on invitation 7 times. And there is a gentleman who is a good friend of mine there. His name is Enrique de Souza. Enrique de Souza. He visited us here also, more than once. He told me that when I visited Brazil, he lives in Rio de Janeiro, and he told me that he had a relative, a very young girl, little girl. That girl could remember her past incarnation, and the girl said that she was an elderly woman in her previous incarnation and who was the aunt of some of the members of that family. And what she said was validated. You see, what she said was true. That's in a Catholic family, think of it. So it is not that the idea of reincarnation is only the property of those Hindus, superstitious Hindus. That happens among the Christians also. Well, I will not talk about Muslims because that's a very touchy area. There are some touchy people there, you see. Prophet Muhammad was not touchy. He was a genuine saint. But anyway, I'm sure this phenomenon is there everywhere. Some people can remember, not all. Some exceptional people can remember their past incarnations. One Sikh lady, she is a close relative of one of our members, and I call them devotees. That means they adore Sri Ramakrishna. Those who adore Sri Ramakrishna, we call them devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. Those who adore Jesus Christ, we call them devotees of Jesus Christ, and that's how it is. And that gentleman, his name is Satwan Singh. He lives in Canada. He said that if I remember correctly, his aunt could remember her past incarnation. And she said that after her death, when her body was being cremated, she went to her home with some kind of subtle, finer body, you see. And then, after a while, her soul entered into a bird's body. That means she was born as a bird. But luckily, that bird didn't live long. That bird died, and then she was born as a human being again. Why she was born as a bird, I do not know. That is not common, but it is not impossible. Our scriptures say that it is possible for some reason, unknown reason. And she could remember. And there are many other cases. I know those are genuine cases. Now, what happens to one after death? Our scriptures say that when a person dies, his physical body is left behind, body made of muscles and bones and all that, but a subtle body, finer body. A person may throw away his shirt which he is wearing, but there is a T-shirt inside. That is like the subtle body. And the subtle body, subtle in the sense that it is subtle compared to what we experience in this world. This podium is not that subtle. It is solid, made of wood and all. Air is comparatively subtle when compared to this podium. So, the mind is also very subtle, and our sages knew long time ago that the mind is a kind of fine matter. Truly speaking, almost the finest matter. Energy and matter are the same. They knew it long time back. So, this body, physical body is left behind, and the vital energy of that person, his senses, his mind, they form something like a package. And that package clings to the soul, and that soul goes to another plane of existence. This plane of existence has certain frequencies of vibration. Our ancient scriptures say, at the beginning, there was the finest kind of matter, which they call akasha. And there was no proper word, counterpart for that word, so they would use the word ether. But ether is something different from that. But anyway, Akasha started vibrating with cosmic energy, and it vibrated Akasha. When it vibrated Akasha, different things appeared due to different frequencies of vibration. Modern physics also is echoing that idea. Everything is vibrating. That's what. So there are worlds with different sets of vibration, occupying the same space, not above or below. And these worlds are called lokas. How many such worlds are there? Innumerable, they say. And when a person dies with his subtle body, that person's soul goes to one such world or the other. What determines to which world or plane of existence the departed soul will go? That depends on the quality of the mind of the departed soul. It is the quality of purity of the mind of that departed soul which will determine to which loka the departed soul will go. We know that in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, who is considered the greatest Hindu saint of this age, when he gave up his body, his saintly wife was still alive. And she was naturally missing him. And then Sri Ramakrishna, even though he had passed away, he took a form and came to her and said, "Don't grieve. I have gone only from one room to another." That means one plane of existence to another plane of existence. How does the soul which departs from this world goes to a loka? Some descriptions have been given in our scriptures. They say that there are two major paths, so to say, two major processes by following which the departed souls go to another loka. The first is called the Pitriyana. That is the path of the ancestors or something. It is also called Dhumayana, the smoky path. People who are charitable and virtuous, they follow this path, and when they die, they go through a domain called Dhuma, then another domain called Ratri, then another domain called Krishna Paksha, then another domain called Sanmasa Dakshinayana, and then they go to a domain called Pitriloka, and from that domain they go to the domain which is called Chandra, and there they remain. From there they may be born again if they have the desire to come back to this world, because that mind has gone there along with them. And the other path is called Devayana. That means it is a path which is made of light, so to say, which shines, shiny path. Those who worship God with pure heart and sincere devotion, and those who work selflessly, go by this path to the other world which that person deserves to be, where the person deserves to be. And step by step they have to go. It looks like they go to one loka and make some progress there, and then goes to another loka, their minds go on making progress. So those who follow this path, which is Devayana, first go to a domain called Archi, then another domain called Diva, then still another domain called Shukla Paksha, then Sanmasa Uttarayana, then Samvatsara, then Aditya, then Chandrama, and then Vidyut. And when they go to that domain called Vidyut, one superhuman soul helps them to experience God. They don't have to be reborn. Or when they go to one domain or the other, there are guides who will take them to the other domain. There was one saint named Vijay Krishna Goswami. He was a contemporary of Sri Ramakrishna. About him, Sri Ramakrishna said at one time that Vijaya Krishna is now in such a stage that there is only a transparent glass wall between him and God. He can see God but cannot touch God. That is the idea. He can know the presence of God but cannot touch God. And after this statement was made by Sri Ramakrishna, Vijaya Krishna Goswami lived for many more years. And so we believe that he attained sainthood. He has spiritually illumined. But some saints, you see, they have some powers. Those powers come to them automatically. Some of them use such powers, others don't use them. In our order, such powers must not be used by any monk, even if the monk gets that kind of power. And I believe many of them have acquired those powers. 8 powers, those are called occult powers. And studying the minds of people, it is nothing. They can do many things, you see, with that power. But we are forbidden to use any of those powers. But Vijaya Krishna Goswami, Vijaya Krishna saint, Vijaya Krishna is known as Vijaya Krishna Goswami, he did not belong to our order. So while once he went to see an elderly woman, a very devout woman who was in her deathbed. He had been requested to go. And when he stood near her bed, she could see some strange things. On top of her prostrate body, which was in the bed, she could see another body being built, as it were, by some skilled, what shall I say, a skilled artisan. It resembled her body very much. And there was a cord, like a silk cord, connecting these two bodies. The other body, which was being made by that invisible artisan, that was floating on top of her body, which was in her bed. Then suddenly the cord snapped, and the body which was floating above became alive. And some light started coming out of her body. And then that was her death, actually. And then another person with a shiny body, the body was giving light, came to receive her. And they both went away, disappeared. When she had become fit to go to a particular loka where everyone's body is made of light that way. This is one incident. Then another time, Vijaya Krishna Goswami went to see a young man who had newly married. He was in his deathbed. So he went there and he saw that the young man was in his bed, but on top of that body, another body similar to his body which was in bed was being made by some invisible artisan, as it were. But the body was, when it is made, then immediately it would have a tendency to disintegrate. Then again it was brought back to its form. That's what went on going. I would say that it was an indication that the young man was not prepared to die. He didn't want to die, you see. That's why that was happening. But anyway, then a time came when that cord which was connecting the floating body with the body which was in bed of that young man, that snapped, and that young man died. But the body, upper body, it became alive, but it was a dull colored body. No light was coming out of that body, that subtle body. Then the young man went to his mother, and the mother was there crying in that room. Mother, I am not dead, I am all right, you see, why are you crying like that? But the mother couldn't hear, or see him, you see. He was invisible to her. Then his wife was in the next room crying. He went to his wife and with great feeling said, "Why are you crying? I'm all right. You see, here I am. I'm not dead." But the wife, of course, couldn't see him. Then with great feeling, he started saying the same things to his wife. Then suddenly something happened. His wife could see him. And when she saw him, she got scared and ran out of the room, saying, "Oh, a ghost has come to get me." She was very scared. And that made the young man very upset. And when he died, some other person, a guide as it were, had come to take him to the plane of existence where he was supposed to go. But the young man would not go with him. So that guide went away. And when he saw that his wife was scared of him, and then he became pensive and he was there a little bit and then disappeared from there. It's very interesting, I thought. I read that many years ago, but I vividly remember the description and everything. So, after death existence is not a fiction, it is a fact. And if we lead a good life and if we improve the quality of our minds, then when we die, we will get a body made of light. And some people can see such people whose bodies emit light, and they say they are angels. In India, that we call a deva. But going to the other world and staying there is not our goal, according to Hinduism. We should experience God. In every plane of existence, there must be some difficulty or the other. We have to go beyond suffering forever. And when we experience divinity, then we go beyond suffering. That is the goal. And Sri Ramakrishna would always tell others, the goal of human life is to experience God. And it is within our reach. If we but try, all that we have to do is we have to transform our minds into very, very pure minds. And then the goal will be reached. Only the pure mind can experience God. Thank you very much. Now let me conclude with a short chant, which is the same chant which I used at the beginning. Om asato ma satgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma mritam gamaya Om shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. O God, please lead us to the real from the unreal. Please lead us from ignorance to knowledge. Please lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.